Welcome to Hannity. We have a lot of breaking news tonight and analysis you won't get anywhere else. It is official, though. The Democratic Party, the media mob, they have zero, I mean zero interest in doing a single thing to serve you, we, the American people. Not one thing that will make us more safe, more secure, more prosperous. They are now officially so partisanly blind and focused on one thing only: get power back at all costs. And it means two things. They have now officially declared they will abuse all of their powers to destroy a sitting president, announcing what is the single biggest fishing expedition in the history of this country, declaring war on American success, planning to remake America into their socialist utopia where no more oil, no gas, no cars with combustion engines, no planes, no cows, everything's free. Health care, college, retirement, even for those unwilling to work, and free vacations and government healthy food. This is now their stated plan as the 2020 primary now kicks into full gear. I'm going to explain all of this in detail and the impact it's going to have on the country. Also tonight, even their radical climate-shaming Green New Deal agenda is being called out by the former president of Greenpeace Canada. He will be here in an exclusive interview. And later, the victim of an apparent political hate crime at Berkeley reacts to the president's historic speech about free speech on college campuses over the weekend, and the person responsible has now been apprehended. But first, as I have been warning you, leading into the 2018 midterm elections, the Democrats' endless investigations, the hate Trump agenda is now hitting literally psychotic levels of derangement. Look, their job is to be a public servant, but they have now made it their full-time stated mission and purpose to try and batter, bludgeon this president at all costs, to either impeach or try to make President Trump unelectable in 2020. The issue of serving you, we the people, doesn't factor into a single part of their agenda as to what they're publicly announcing. Now, as you watch tonight's monologue, I want you to ask yourself, is what you are seeing from the new far-left Democratic Party good for you, good for your family? Is it creating a safer country for our kids and grandkids, a more prosperous nation? Is any of this about serving the American people? Well, I think the answer will be obvious, because just like I have told you in the past, that once the Democrats' collusion hysteria was exposed as a fraud, they wouldn't apologize, they wouldn't admit they're wrong, they were just going to pivot into investigating anything they make up and everything involving the president. Now, we the people will now be subject to what it will be the biggest, most gruesome display of modern-day McCarthyism, which is just the widest fishing net expedition, all in an effort to destroy the president and anybody who supports him, because the bottom line is all they care about is getting their power back so they can institute socialism right here in this country. Instead of just admitting the truth that they've been lying to you, they announced the launch of the broadest, most sweeping witch hunt into simultaneously basically every aspect of the president's life, his businesses, his finance, and every single thing he has done as a candidate and as president, all designed to create a false narrative about who this president is. They'll never talk about the success. They played no part in it. Now it's on full display, because McCarthy investigation number one, well, that comes from the House Judiciary Chairman, Jerry Nadler, targeting President Trump, his family, his businesses. And today he issued 80 document requests, which went out to everyone from the president's son, Eric and Don Jr., the Trump Organization, Carter Page, George Papadopoulos. Now, all of these people are going to have to hire attorneys. Who's going to pay that fortune? Many of these people have already testified. Many of them have. Remember what happened to Michael Flynn, General Flynn, in the case? He had to sell his house. They threatened his son. He nearly went broke. He had to sign something he didn't believe to be true. The whole strategy is about battering, harassing, making insinuations about the president and his allies under heavy legal cost, and nothing to do with seeking truth. They're just hoping that something, anything, whatever, they're going to throw everything up against the wall and hope something, someplace, somewhere sticks. You know, they'll throw out every wild conspiracy theory possible. And, of course, they don't admit they lied for 2 years, as the hate Trump media mob has lied for 2 years. They won't admit it either. They won't retract. They won't apologize. They won't correct the record. That's never going to happen. Don't hold your breath. Let's move on to the next lying narrative, the next conspiracy theory. Now, among the Democrats' investigations that involves 2016, plans to build Trump Tower in Moscow. Wow. It never happened. And the president's lawful, correct decision to fire James Comey, which even Comey himself admitted the president had every right to do for any reason or no reason. It sounds so eerily familiar, right? Weren't the Democrats the one telling us we needed to accept the findings of the Mueller probe, accept the will of the American people in the election, let the process play out? But of course, this only confirms everything we have been predicting. The Democrats' only agenda now is to make every single working day in Washington a public trial against President Trump. Listen to Congressman Nadler. Oh, by the way, he's already concluded that the president is guilty of a crime, obstructing justice, and he hasn't started the investigation. Guilt by accusation, just like Justice Kavanaugh. This is the Democratic Party and the media mob's way. Take a look.
Do you think the president obstructed justice?
Yes, I do. It's very clear that the president obstructed justice. It's very clear. 1,100 times he referred to the Mueller investigation as a witch hunt. He tried to, he tried to protect Flynn from being investigated by the FBI. He fired Comey in order to stop the Russian thing, as he told NBC News. He's dangled he's threatened. He's intimidated witnesses in public.
Given his opinion about the witch hunt? No, that's called freedom of speech. Obstruction of justice because he fired Comey? Comey doesn't even agree with that. Remember this.
When I was appointed FBI director in 2013, I understood that I served at the pleasure of the president. Even though I was appointed to a 10-year term, which Congress created in order to underscore the importance of the FBI being outside of politics and independent, I understood that I could be fired by a president for any reason or for no reason at all.
Any reason or no reason. Yeah, it's legal. The president can fire the FBI director for no reason at all. And don't forget, Nadler himself said back in 2016, Barack Obama should can Comey for influencing the election. How ironic. Oh, I love tape. Thank goodness for tape.
What Comey did was so highly improper and wrong. From the very beginning in July, the president ought to fire Comey immediately, and he ought to initiate an investigation.
Can't just fire Comey.
Oh, yes, he can.
Why?
For cause. He can fire.
Oh, for cause. Because, you know, he's got a set term. So he's insulated from political
but the president
payback like this.
For cause and ought to.
There's a very serious side to all of this. What this is really all about is the Democrats, they want to make the next 2 years about trying to wear you out, wear you down, to try and destroy the president. They want a death by 1,000 cuts if they can't impeach, building a public record of testimony every single second hour of every 24-hour day, hoping you will tire out, make you want to abandon the president who's had so much success so that they can build more power, enact this radical socialist agenda for America's future. That's what it's all about, power and their agenda, because they can't get it done any other way. They don't think. And by the way, now that it's become clear Mueller isn't going to give them what they want, that's why this is now Plan B and C and D and E and F all at once. Look at everything. Open a widest net possible. All things Trump. Anything he's come into contact with over decades, then concoct new conspiracy theories, launch more phony investigations, but don't serve the American people. And it's not just Nadler's committee. Look at House Intel Committee Chairman Adam Schiff, who, by the way, I can prove is the biggest phony hypocrite liar in Congress. He can now barely contain himself, you know, to say he will accept Mueller's findings. He doesn't want to accept them. Instead, he's promising a new set of investigations after 2 years of investigation into the so-called Russia-Trump conspiracy theory. And he continues to lie about this evidence, and that's something that House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy pushed back on hard yesterday. Congressman McCarthy will be here in a minute. Also remember, if you want real evidence of real collusion, Adam Schiff, we have him on tape colluding with Russians, literally conspiring to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. We have the tape of it, colluding with Russians for dirt on Trump. Why won't the media mob play this? Take a listen.
He was in Moscow in November 2013. He met with a journalist and...
Well, she's a poor journalist, but anyway, she became famous because of Putin is her godfather.
Okay, Putin's godfather. Okay.
She also known as a person who provided girls for escort for oligarchs, and she met with Trump and she brought him one-hour Russian girl celebrity Olga Buzova, who also known as a person with a strange reputation.
Olga, and how do you spell her name?
Olga Buzova.
And what's the nature of the compromise?
Well, there were pictures of naked Trump.
And so Putin was made aware of the availability of the compromising material?
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much. We will be back in touch with you through our staff to make arrangements to obtain these materials for our committee and for the FBI, and I appreciate you reaching out to us.
Yes, thank you, comrade. By the way, we've invited Schiff on this program any night. Give him the full hour. I'll even add my radio show, 300 of the best radio stations in the country if Adam Schiff wants the next 3 hours. And so the propaganda and misinformation now, goes away. I have every lie of his chronicled, every one. You should take Bill Maher's advice. All right, moving further along. Now, as we continue, because all of this will go down as the biggest malfeasance of duty, oversight, abuse of power by Democrats to use their positions now to advance their own position, just fueled by utter blind rage, trying to either impeach Trump, destroy Trump based on nothing, just throwing anything out there to damage him, so he's unelectable. Well, that's not good for the country. Ask yourself, is there anything the Democrats are talking about? Does it have anything to do with growing the economy, creating jobs, or anything to do to create a safer, more prosperous future for our country? Because don't forget, last week they put partisan politics over the prospect of denuclearization, war and peace, and historic diplomacy. And President Trump, he took notice. He tweeted out, for the Democrats to interview in open hearings a convicted liar, fraudster, at the same time as a very important nuclear summit with North Korea is perhaps a new low in American politics and may have contributed to, quote, the walk never done when a president is overseas. And we played that for you last week. Imagine being so consumed with hate, the rules are being rewritten as we speak, and so consumed that you're willing to now go to undermine historic talks abroad. House Democrats, they used to be, for the guy that, used Michael Cohen, who's already going to jail, to try and score cheap political points when the country should have been united in pursuit of such a noble goal of a safer world. It just looks like their stunt is starting to backfire. Look at the new poll, 37% registered voters found the testimony credible, and facing unprecedented efforts to thwart his agenda. Oh, the president's job approval continues to rise. His economic victories, they continue to pile up. New census data is out. The Hispanic poverty rate has now fallen to a record low in this country. That's on top of the near record low unemployment for the Hispanic American community, record low unemployment for African Americans, women in the workplace, record low unemployment for youth in America, historic energy to independence. We are now completely independent for the first time in 75 years. Look at the crowd at CPAC this weekend, going wild for the president's rousing 2-hour speech. Take a look.
More people are working today in the United States than ever before in the history of our country. We've slashed 30,000 pages of job-killing regulations from the Federal Register. That's an all-time record of the history of the United States. We passed the largest package of tax cuts and reforms in American history. We're renegotiating right now horrible trade deals that we're cracking down, and we are really doing a number, cracking down on countries that cheat and standing up for the American worker for the first time in many, many decades.
And the president didn't stop there, taking direct aim at the radical Democrats and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, this crazy, insane Green New Deal that they love. Take a look.
The Green New Deal, right? Green New Deal. I encourage it. I think it's really something that they should promote. They should work hard on. No planes. No energy. When the wind stops blowing, that's the end of your electric. Let's hurry up. Darling? Darling, is the wind blowing today? I'd like to watch television, darling.
Now it's revealed, just like socialist comrade Bernie Sanders, well, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez rhetoric doesn't seem to match her actions. According to a new major expose, New York Post, Ocasio-Cortez prefers planes instead of trains when traveling between Washington, D.C. and New York, racking up huge transportation expenses instead of taking the subway. Seems more than happy to take advantage of the technology she claims is going to end the world in 12 years. Remember, she called for abolishing airplanes. And don't forget Bernie, Hillary, Biden, all of them, Al Gore, they all cruise around in their private jets. Ocasio-Cortez seems more than happy to push a massive takeover by the federal government into the lives of us, we the people, like abolishing fossil fuels while she's choosing her private rides over public transportation. And now Ocasio-Cortez responded on Twitter, in part writing, quote, "Well, I always fly and use AC. Living in the world as it is isn't an argument against working towards a better future." Nice try. And ask yourself this. Why is it that those who shout the loudest for the radical climate-shaming policies are always the last to make the personal sacrifices and lead by example? Good news is, well, it doesn't look like the American people are buying it. Look at this new poll. Americans overwhelmingly rejecting a turn towards socialism because we know that a $93 trillion Green New Deal, 70% tax rates, destroying incentives to work would be an economic nightmare. And it turns out that everything free comes at a high cost, especially freedom and liberty. And while the hate Trump media mob ignores these radical Democrats being exposed, they continue to smear the president no matter what, because don't forget, they all but ignored the president's historic summit in Vietnam last week and only started to cover it after the president walked away from the table. The double standards, the derangement, the hate is out of control. And also just in tonight, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders responding to the Democrats' new slew of witch hunts, saying in a statement, quote, "Democrats are harassing the president to distract from their radical agenda of making America a socialist country, killing babies after they are born, and pushing a Green New Deal that would destroy jobs and bankrupt America." We're going to have a lot more on the media's hypocrisy later in the program. First, joining us with reaction is the House Minority Leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy, California. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you for being with us. Let's start with Adam Schiff, because you believe that he's met his own standard as it relates to recusal in the investigation, which apparently the Mueller investigation is not going the way he wants.
Well, there's a lot of questions, and Schiff actually laid out a couple years ago that anybody that shows that a conflict of interest or disbelief in it has to recuse themselves. There's a couple questions for him. Schiff, when we were trying to find out who paid for this dossier, he fought. So we could not find out it was the Democratic Party that paid the Russians for the dossier. Then now we find out that Schiff met with Glenn Simpson, who's the co-founder of Fusion GPS. Well, who, remember, Nellie Orr worked the wife of Orr over at the Justice Department. And at the time he met with him, the committee wanted to re-look at him based upon the testimony Glenn Simpson had given. So did Schiff talk to Simpson about that, what the committee wanted to look at? Now we find out in the Michael Cohen that Schiff talked to him. We want to know, did staff meet with him? Did he tamper with the witness? Did he try to direct the witness? How many times did he meet?
Well,
what did
they
they talk
say
about?
that they talked about what issues would come up, the topics?
Schiff has not said so. These are questions he needs to answer. The other thing that's very interesting, when Glenn Simpson came before the committee, you know what Adam Schiff did at the end? He asked Glenn Simpson to direct the committee on where they should go with the investigation. The man who created all this. Then the most outrageous thing I found in that whole Michael Cohen hearing. Remember why this whole Mueller investigation is going forward. This whole thing of collusion. It is all based upon the belief that Michael Cohen went to Prague to meet with the Russians. Michael Cohen said he did not. So the foundation for why we are in the investigation in the first place has been thrown apart.
What did you think,
yes.
Congressman, what did you think of the tape I just played? Now, in that tape, Adam Schiff believed he was talking to a Russian operative who had compromising material on Donald Trump. It sounded to me an awful lot like, on tape, him colluding with the Russians to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. Maybe I heard it wrong, but that's what I heard. I'm wondering what you heard.
Well, remember what else we know about Adam Schiff. Before this investigation even began, he said he had proof and evidence. Now, I'm not related to Joe McCarthy, but Adam Schiff is a modern-day Joe McCarthy, somebody who claims something and never has delivered. But the one thing he has delivered on, protecting Fusion GPS. He didn't want us to know that the Democrats paid for the Russians to have this false dossier. He protected Glenn and met with him when others did not know. And did he tell him that the committee was concerned about his own testimony?
They're going to use up to eight House committees now. Non-stop investigation. This is the widest net investigation we've ever seen. You're right. This is like modern-day McCarthyism. And they're doing it to get their power back in the hopes that we can eliminate gas, oil, cows, planes, cars as we know them, and everything is going to be free and confiscate pretty much everything everybody makes. I've never seen it like this before. I don't know what the right strategy is, but if this is an abuse of their power, it should be.
They're doing it for a couple different reasons. If you watched Congressman Nadler this weekend, I was on George Stephanopoulos' show with him right afterwards. He is starting to denounce the Mueller investigation. Why? Because they know there's no collusion. So they're saying, we don't have to worry about that. We need to start our own. And just throwing mud anywhere they go. But we've got to stop calling them the Democratic Party, because I've never seen it this poisonous, this toxic, and there's no other way to say it than a socialist. They want to take over your health care. They just introduced Medicare for all, where you can't have private health insurance. They want to take over your homes and what you can even have in your homes or your planes by this new Green Deal. They even call themselves the Democratic Socialist Party. We need to call them for exactly what this is. And they want to hide from the fact of the success of this president. Just last week, look what the GDP said, 2.6% growth when everybody thought it was 2.2%. This president is sitting in Vietnam trying to denuclearize North Korea, and never in the history of this country, it always was before, that the politics ends at the water's edge. If this president or any president is overseas, you would not do to this president what they did. The dislike for this president is so great, they'll go against their own country's safety and freedom.
If he would have given $150 billion in cash and other currencies, they probably would have praised him, just like they praised that Iranian deal. Mr. Minority Leader, Congressman McCarthy, thank you. When we come back, a lot more news ahead. Former leader, get this, of the environmental group Greenpeace, slamming Ocasio-Cortez over the New Deal. We'll have that investigation. And remember that student that got cold cock punched? Yeah, the guy's been arrested. We have an update straight ahead. All right, look at this cover right out now from New York Magazine titled, "When Did Everyone Become a Socialist?" Now, we all know socialism doesn't work. Now, give me a minute to explain. You know, the promise is, it'll take away all your fears. Everything's going to be free. It really means government takeover of entire industries. Here's one example. Healthcare, the takeover of the healthcare industry under socialism. Kamala Harris, others, Gillibrand, you will not be allowed to own your own private healthcare plan. They've said so. By the way, how much you want to bet Democrats exempt themselves and they get to keep their plans? And it's not an exaggeration. The plan is being pushed by Bernie Sanders. Kamala Harris literally eliminates all private health insurance. See, with socialism, everyone is promised all your worries, anxieties in life are taken away and everything is free, which they never keep. That promise, just think of keep your doctor, keep your plan, and pay less. But you do give up two big things, freedom and liberty in the name of false security. One of the Democrats pushing this is Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez. And one of my next guests is calling out the Congresswoman and her Green New Deal. Patrick Moore, he's the former president of Greenpeace Canada, wrote this on Twitter this weekend. Ice. Pompous little twit, you don't have a plan to grow food for 8 billion people without fossil fuels or get food into cities. What, horses? If fossil fuels were banned, every tree in the world would be cut down for fuel and cooking and eating. It would bring about mass death. Patrick Moore joins us now to explain, and he's joining us with chief meteorologist for weatherbell.com, and that is Joe Bastardi. All right, you know, they're kind of going after your credentials as Greenpeace, which I think has had a pretty stellar reputation over the years, in spite of my maybe personal disagreements. I'm an all-of-the-above guy and believe we should be good stewards of God's gifts. Okay, so that would mean all the above. Why did you say that on Twitter?
Well, Sean, she's talking about climate change, of course, and saying that we have to eliminate fossil fuels, all fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, in 10 years. This would be basically a suicide pact. over 80% of the U.S. and the world's energy comes from fossil fuels. And the only reason for banning them is the so-called climate apocalypse or climate catastrophe. I see AOC recruiting young teachers and whole classes of young children against the apocalypse, they're saying. They're telling these children that there's going to be an apocalypse in 10 years if they don't save the climate. I think this is child abuse myself. The whole climate change movement has now reverted to using kids as a front for not only climate change and ending the use of fossil fuels, but the whole ball of wax about socialism. I think that's really what they're trying to sell.
Patrick, it's interesting you say that. There was a really cute girl on 60 Minutes last night that's suing the federal government. Apparently this lawsuit's been going on for 4 years. And as I listen, clearly she believes everything. And I agree in the sense that it's very apocalyptic. Joe Bastardi, one thing I love about you is you can tell me what was the big storm in 1903 and where it happened and why it happened and what the conditions were that caused it to happen and compare it to today. And you've been saying that almost the same thing as Patrick Moore.
Well, yeah, I say the same thing. 1903, by the way, Atlantic City got hit by a hurricane from the southeast in September. So I'm glad you brought up 03.
Show off.
Yeah.
All right,
well,
go ahead.
when I saw the new Green Deal, Sean, I thought it was a Saturday Night Live skit. Drunk uncles spouting off. We're going to build railroads across the ocean. Let's build one to the moon. We could put a restaurant up there. Great food, but no atmosphere. It'd be a vegan restaurant, though. The whole thing is meant to get you to try to fight against an extreme position while there's incremental creeping of this. And Dr. Moore just described it. What they're doing to kids. They're indoctrinating kids. Where would those kids be if we did not have the fossil fuel era? The true hockey sticks of the fossil fuel era are life expectancy, the amount of people on the planet, and personal GDP. They're all skyrocketing. It's almost like these people are ungrateful for what got them here.
You think about it, eliminate cows, cars as we know them, airplanes, Patrick. How are we going to get to Europe? We're going to take a sailboat? Are we going to take a high-speed train?
No, a train,
Are we going to build it above or below the water? So my question, Patrick, to you is, isn't natural gas one of the cleaner burning gases out there? Aren't there ways we can improve the environment simultaneously while also using the lifeblood of every economy that feeds everybody, as you rightly point out?
Well, Sean, we've actually improved the cleanliness of all the fossil fuels. Coal, oil, the vehicle emissions today are less than 90%, have been improved by more than 90% from what they were decades ago. And, we could use more nuclear energy for producing electricity. That's true, and hydroelectric. But funny, they're against both of those too, which are the only two really reliable, cost-effective technologies that could replace fossil fuels. And, we could put nuclear reactors in the big ships, just like the Russians' whole icebreaker fleet and nuclear navies are powered with nuclear. We could do that. So there are some places where we could reduce fossil fuel. But when it comes to transportation and also agriculture, food, and moving people and goods around, if you stop moving the food into the cities, people in the cities will starve. They can't grow their food in Manhattan, enough for all those people in the high rises.
Not enough tomato pots, I agree, or enough lamb. I'm going to give the last word to Joe Bastardi. We only have about 15 seconds, Joe. You get to close this out.
If you take a look at the entire history of the planet, the 10 billion years, however far you want to go back, this would be the first time that man is controlling the climate. I tend to doubt that that is the case.
All right, thank you both. It's important everybody hear the other side here, even from Greenpeace. All right, when we come back, Hannity, our 2020 watch continues. We'll investigate and expose Bernie Sanders' hypocrisy yet again. We'll tell you what he did this time. Also, remember the story, sore loser Hillary Clinton, what she's now saying about the president these days, and also the kid that got punched at Berkeley, they got the guy. We'll update the story. That kid will join us straight ahead. All right, time for Hannity Watch, our investigation into the 2020 candidates this weekend. Senator Bernie Sanders kicked off his 2020 campaign in Brooklyn, wasted little time before revealing, well, more hypocrisy. Democratic Socialist, open borders advocate, held a rally and was happy to greet his supporters from behind a barrier. Why's the fence up, Bernie? Oh, are barriers acceptable if they protect you personally? They're only wrong if they're used to protect our border and the American people, just like how many celebrities in Hollywood and politicians have armed security guards, and Bernie flies in private jets. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton was down in Alabama this weekend where she warned the country is in, quote, full-fledged crisis mode. Take a look.
This is a time, my friends, when fundamental rights, civic virtue, freedom of the press, the rule of law, truth, facts, and reason are under assault. And make no mistake, we are living through a full-fledged crisis in our democracy.
Oh, and the fake phony accent came back. Remember this? This is from this weekend.
Reverend Green, when those bones get up, and when that spirit is breathed into them, and they start climbing out of that valley, the first place they go is to register to vote.
And she lost Wisconsin because of racist voter suppression. Here now, Salem, nationally syndicated radio talk show is Larry Elder, who's laughing, former 2016 National Racial Justice Director for Bernie Sanders. Teslin Figaro is back with us, and former Clinton pollster Doug Schoen. Oh, I see. Teslin, you're laughing as well. I'll let you go first because you supported Bernie.
Yeah, you know, Sean, you talk about the barriers that he put up, and the unfortunate thing is all of the Democrat candidates are putting up barriers between them and the voters. And it's really sad, the pandering that we've seen. And I just want to say this, Sean, it doesn't feel good calling out Bernie Sanders. I lost my mother while I was on this campaign, and there are people over there who I absolutely adore that work for him. But I cannot be a hypocrite myself and not call things out for what it is. Voters do not care about who he marched with in the 60s. They don't care about how much Native American blood Warren has. They don't care about what weed Kamala Harris smoked in the 80s. What we want to know is, what are you going to do specifically, particularly for my community, the African American community, that will affect our community in a positive way? And so it's been really embarrassing to watch the amount of pandering opposed to the policies. And I'm honestly just really embarrassed. I'm a long way.
Well, Larry, it is this little phenomenon. I remember predominantly African-American audience. Al Gore goes into this preacher, changes his tone, his cadence, his delivery, Republicans wrong. He starts talking like he's a preacher, and he's not. And Hillary, we knew that in the last campaign. Now it happens again. What is that?
It's trying to relate, trying to be real, trying to keep it real, trying to be woke, as young people say. Look, I still argue, John, it is the economy, stupid. Barack Obama gave us the worst economic recovery since 1949. And as you pointed out during your monologue, black unemployment near an all-time low. The other thing is this. Donald Trump wants to give inner-city parents the option so that their kid does not have to go to a school where only 3% of kids can do math at grade level, which is the case with my alma mater. He wants to give parents an option out of that particular school for maybe they can get a better shot at getting an education and getting to the middle class. What could be more important than getting a quality education? And Donald Trump wants to do that. The Democrats are wedded to the teachers union. They despise choice. They despise vouchers. And therefore, they care more about the teachers than they care about what the teachers are trying to do, which is to educate children. That is one of the big reasons why, in my opinion, Donald Trump's going to get a surprisingly large amount of the black vote.
And I think that you make, as always, a solid argument. Doug Schoen, I think you want to criticize your fellow Democrats more than you do, but you look at now 8 committees now are going to, the widest net, and apparently they're not getting what they want from the Mueller investigation, so they believe. This is, let's throw anything and everything up against the wall. Let's spend the next 2 years only investigating Trump. Nothing to help the American people, the forgotten men and women. Oh, and then if we get power back by that strategy, then we're going to impose the no planes, no cars, no oil, no gas, no cow rule.
Right. Well, you're saying 2 things, Sean, that I unfortunately, because I am a Democrat, have to agree with. First, the Green New Deal is a non-starter. Medicare for all, guaranteed jobs for all. These are a path to ruination.
There's 100 Democrats in Congress, prominent presidential candidates supporting it. This is not one person.
It's a loser, Sean. Right. It'll cost us the presidency, may help them win the nomination. But to turn to your other point, I worked for Bill Clinton, as you know, and we've talked many times, during the Lewinsky scandal. And the Republicans were guilty of overreach there. We, the Democrats, ran in the 98 midterms on progress, not partisanship. If the Democrats go overboard, as I am afraid they could, with these additional Mueller-like investigations, it will hurt the Democrats and help Donald Trump.
Right. Tesla, this is an unprecedented abuse of power. Nothing specific. Let's just investigate everything, and hopefully we'll find something we can bludgeon Trump with.
Anything.
Well, I don't have a problem, I guess, with them investigating. I would like to see some investigations go on the other side. Anytime someone's been in office 20, 30 years, for example, Congresswoman Brown, who I adored, she sent me to Congressional Black Caucus in 2010, and she ended up going to jail, based upon some findings that were on her. So, I'm across the board with this. I'm independent. I don't lean to one side or the other. And so we just have to continue to be fair, and let's pull up the rug and see what everybody's been doing on both sides of the aisle.
But the point is there's nothing specific they're investigating, Larry, and this is now their full-time consumption. I don't even think it's good politics. If you serve the American people, convince them you have a better plan.
It's bad politics, as Doug has pointed out. And real quickly, Sean, I find it bizarre that the Democrats call this a Green New Deal. The old New Deal deepened and lengthened what would have been a recession and turned it into a depression. I think they need to bone up a little bit on their history.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for being with us. Tesla, we haven't had you on in a while. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. All right. When we come back, remember our Hannity investigation? Berkeley conservative activist viciously punched in the face on UC Berkeley's campus. He is now here to tell us where that case is. There has been an arrest in that case. Also, our own Lawrence Jones, as Hannity continues. We're glad you're with us as always. CPAC, the president announced his plans to issue an executive order to ensure that America's left-wing universities actually enforce freedom of speech so they don't get money. On stage with the president was Hayden Williams. He was viciously, as you know, attacked while recruiting students for a conservative organization at UC Berkeley. Thankfully, the UC Berkeley police announced Friday that they have made an arrest. The suspect, 28-year-old Zachary Greenberg. Hayden joins us now, along with Campus Reform Editor-in-Chief and Fox News contributor Lawrence Jones. All right, Hayden, number one, we're glad you're here. Pretty cool getting called up with the president, right? It was kind of worth the punch.
Yeah, it was, I guess. It was kind of exhilarating, being recognized and brought up on the stage at CPAC. But, there's so many conservative students across the country who put up with similar forms of discrimination and harassment and even violence that, don't get recognized. And, we've covered it extensively.
And it's interesting. You were trying to tape him. You had a phone in one hand, and he's just standing there. And then, when you least expect it, it's a cheap shot. But it's also violence. It's an assault. Right. Do you plan on pursuing this to the fullest extent of the law?
Of course. I mean, that's really the only way we can hold these people accountable is by, first and foremost, documenting these incidents as they happen. And, that's really one thing we teach at Leadership Institute is, just try to record everything and don't retaliate because, the left will use anything they can to try to distort the facts.
I might give you different advice, and I know you have 3 eyewitnesses that saw it from the very beginning, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I might give you a little different advice. Somebody's that threatening, you do have a right to protect yourself. And the phone becomes secondary when it comes to your personal safety. I train an hour and a half a day, 4 or 5 days a week in mixed martial arts. And I would just advise you, forget the phone, and if somebody's that threatening, be prepared to stop it. Lawrence, we see this all over the country now. It's interesting to me is that conservatives are the one. Liberals claim, like they claim, a monopoly of compassion for people. Not true. They care about the issues of sexual assault, Me Too, but not when it's the lieutenant governor of Virginia. They care about DACA, Dreamers, and furloughed workers, but not if Trump's president. So we know there's a lot of hypocrisy here, but if we don't have, why would any college deserve a penny if they don't allow conservatives even an equal platform to speak?
That's exactly right. And this is why the president is assigning this executive order. The problem is, though, Sean, the president shouldn't have to sign a law reaffirming what is guaranteed to us by the Constitution. It's freedom of speech. But they don't care about it. And this shows you because UC Berkeley isn't taking this seriously. They're trying to act like this is just an isolated event when we've seen the campus on fire. We've seen conservatives being targeted on the campus. Just look at some of the staff members that celebrated Hayden being hit in the face. Let's be honest here, Sean. I couldn't have taken the punch. I just couldn't have taken it. When the president said that he took it for all of us, some of us would have reacted differently. And you know what the narrative would have been? It was the conservatives' fault. We instigated this.
Lawrence,
that we wanted
Hayden's
violence.
Orbital bone could have broken. His jaw could have been broken.
Yes.
He's got something in his hand. The guy knows it's a cheap shot.
Yes. He threatened to shoot Hayden, okay? He said that in the video. But look, Sean, the country is sick of this. First, it was during the Kavanaugh hearing, and that started on the college campuses as well. And then it was the hoax with Jussie Smollett. Now we have our kids being hit in the face.
Right,
I think the Democrats are heading to a place of no return.
You get the last word, Hayden. And I'm not saying you did the wrong thing. I just hate to see cheap shots and a bullying assault like that.
Right, yeah, and I'm glad that, the Berkeley Police Department was able to hold this guy, in custody, and hopefully we'll be able to hold him accountable to the fullest extent of the law.
All right, thank you both for being with us. All right, when we come back, our villain of the day, Trace Gallagher, with a live report on how Democratic leadership is responding to more anti-Semitism, more remarks of Congresswoman Omar. Straight ahead, and your mail. I love that animation. Villain of the day. It involves Congresswoman Omar and her anti-Semitic remarks yet again. Trace Gallagher is in the West Coast newsroom tonight to explain all to us. Again, Trace?
Yeah, Sean, the House could vote on a resolution condemning anti-Semitism as early as Wednesday. For now, it's still being worked on, and it's unclear if it will name Representative Ilhan Omar. Either way, this is an unprecedented rebuke to a freshman lawmaker who's been in office for 60 days. Last month, Omar apologized for using an anti-Semitic trope while criticizing the influence of the pro-Israel lobby. Then last week, she reignited the controversy, saying that activists who support Israel have a, quote, allegiance to a foreign country. Democrat Eliot Engel, chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, said it's, quote, unacceptable and deeply offensive to call into question the loyalty of fellow American citizens because of their political views, including support of the U.S.-Israel relationship. Omar fired back, saying that it's problematic being told that she's anti-American if she's not pro-Israel. Remember, back in 2012, she tweeted that Israel had hypnotized the world and asked Allah to help people see the evil doings of Israel. Now some top Republicans are considering offering a censure motion against Omar.
Well, this is a Democratic problem, and yeah, we're proud of our friendship, our alliance with Israel, the only democracy in the region, and how the Prime Minister Netanyahu has had moral clarity on the world stage. All right, thank you, Trace. All right, now, also, responses to our big story. One person writes on Twitter, I doubt the Dems are really going to do anything. Probably all just for show. We certainly hope you take it seriously. This is real. Let not your heart be troubled. We are not the Hate Trump media. Laura Ingraham is not in tonight.
No, it's Waters.
It's Waters' World.